And welcome back to the Tangent Kings Crapshoot. I am, of course, your humble servant, G. Michael Francis. And, of course, my preferred pronouns are Zip, Itty, and Doodah. And I am here with my partner in crime, Mr. JJ Benks. How are you doing today, sir?
This Wish.com Churchill is doing great. Dude, the guy ate that up.
Yes, I know. I saw it.
I think that was one of the best jokes you ever told. I'm like, improvise out of the blue, landed like gold. Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Would you say that was better than the evil sandwich meme?
We need
more funding for evil sandwiches.
Let them decide. Brian's like, I want some of that.
Yes, I do.
Question is my pipe long enough?
Maybe it's possible. Why am I breaking out into Susical Jr.?
Susical Jr. waiting for me.
Oh, the things you can think.
Annie Jr. I still don't know the difference between Annie and Annie Jr.
Well, it's probably similar to, just going off of Susical and Susical Jr., the latter of which I was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Annie Jr. is probably just a shortened version of the original Annie.
Yeah.
Because I know Susical Jr. is just a shortened version of Susical the musical.
Susical the musical. I know and what my brother will remember this when high school, we did Annie Jr. and I wanted to audition for it, but in order to do that, I'd have to stay after school and miss the bus, and so it meant a lot of extra driving for my grandpa, who our bus ride home was already long enough, and I don't think he wanted us to. He was hoping to come in us, picking us up and dropping us off, staying late after school like that. But Annie Jr. they put on, I think they said it was Annie, but dropped to one act, and I'm like, there's more to the play than just the one act, so I don't know what they cut out for the main movie or the play.
It begins with a 45-minute intermission.
Hello, I'm your host, William Shatner, and I'm going to tell you about Star Trek for 45 minutes.
Bye.
And then, bye. But theater's fun. Theater's fun.
It is, I was only ever in one production, and then I was auditioning for the next one that broke me.
Sorry, you said you were in one production
only
and
one.
auditioning, and then you were auditioning for what role?
Well, this was my freshman year of high school. In retrospect, I'm kind of glad I didn't make the cut because the play in question was Cabaret.
For those of us who don't know what Cabaret is, what is that?
Oh, geez, I can't even remember the plot line that well. Basically, American meets this girl at a cabaret bar in Nazi Germany and gets caught up in the politics.
Mm-hmm.
That is the very Spark Notes version.
In Nazi Germany?
Yeah. Okay. I think it was like actually, I think it was like late Weimar Republic. I can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just assume it revolves around some Nazi spy plot or something like that.
No, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily a spy plot. The main character whose name I'm blanking on, he also gets mixed up with this guy who's also a member of the SS. And then this guy's always like asking him for donations, so it's all for a good cause, as he says, until he reveals the swastika.
Or like American History X style, except instead of it's swastika, it's a fidget spinner. It's like, this means you're not welcome here.
Sort of.
Have you seen American History X?
I can't remember the plot that well, and this just sort of came up out of the blue.
Yeah.
All I know is I went to see it. See it, and I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't make the cut.
You're like, you wouldn't have liked it?
No.
I play Jingle Bella.
My wife wants to play something. She wants to play something that is definitely the proper time of year to play the song. She has just informed me that she wants to play a song known as
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells.
Are you drinking ice on milk?
Very subtle. Very subtle. That was
Doesn't
supposed to
everybody-
be. That was supposed to be a running gag.
Was it? Oh, you got it. Earbud in. That would help.
That was supposed to be a running gag.
What? Doesn't
Ice
everybody
on
drink?
milk?
Doesn't everybody drink ice on milk?
No.
I thought everybody drank ice on milk.
Will someone please explain to me why we're doing Christmas music now?
Why are
Okay,
we doing
sorry,
Christmas
sorry.
music?
Okay, sorry. I'll go back.
Go back to your hole. Yeah, I mean,
I like Christmas music in the middle of like September. You tell me.
I didn't say
okay,
I didn't like it. I'm just wondering why we're doing Christmas music in the middle of September.
Mike's backpedaling for me. He's just wondering why.
Hiya.
He said, "Yeah, no, yeah, check it." Mike backpedals. Anyway, so what topics do we have to talk about tonight, Mr.
Oh, those
Mike?
are recording mine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, now
Welcome
that
to this
I've
episode of
complete-
Tangent King, where we're finding out what the F-bomb we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're inheriting the spirit of the Fagawi tribe. You know, we're climbing a tree in the middle at the crack of dawn and yelling, "Where the Fagawi?"
That's funny.
Thank
That's
you.
funny.
Anyway, and that's seems like a little bit of an awkward segue into what you
Into
actually-
ice on milk. It actually, okay, I don't get the hype, but it's actually pretty tasty. I'm not going to lie. It makes the milk colder in a refreshing way somehow. But what were you going to say?
Well, before I was interrupted, I'm actually talking about a topic that you yourself actually suggested.
Oh, yeah?
Because, you know, many of you.
What might that be?
Well, I will tell you if you let me.
Okay.
Creepy Slender Man. There's a memeable face right there. Anyway, many of you may have seen this guy in the background when I was recording in my dining room. And
Yes, that. Go ahead.
And he is the subject of tonight's video at your request, Mr. Benker. That is the Venerable Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen. That was a perfectly timed gasp. Gasp.
Yeah. No, she can't, but that was really well timed. Thank you, man. That landed great. Tell us about Bishop Sheen, Mike.
Well, go quick rundown. He was born on the 8th of May, 1895. And to make a long story very short, because we are very short on time after that whole Christmas bit, he became a priest. When did he become a priest? I want to say in the late 20s, early 30s. And he got noticed for his remarkable speaking abilities, which led to him becoming a Monsignor. And then later, I want to say in the late 50s, early 60s, he became a bishop, an auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese of New York. And from
Wait,
there,
he was sorry to interrupt. He said he's a Monsignor.
Yes.
Is that like is that like Elmo's dad?
How do you even come up with that?
A monster and a Monsignor. And they all went to Montessori. Okay, keep going. I have to aggressively insert this, otherwise the timing will not work. Okay, please continue, Mike.
So anyway, it's in the late 50s and in the early 60s when he came up with his magnum opus, which was actually a television show which was called Life is Worth Living. And it's a wonderful series. You can actually find it on YouTube. My memory's a little bit foggy on it. I've been more into Mother Angelica lately.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a way of talking about the Catholic faith, philosophy, in a way that was it was easier to comprehend, but it wasn't at the same time. He wasn't at the same time insulting your intelligence. Let me pull up a quick example that I had here. Cut.
Would you say a good way of putting it is that he keeps it simple in a way that you can understand it, but doesn't dumb it down?
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
What's happening to the modern mind?
Oh, by the way,
in terms of a tube of toothpaste. Now, I will not describe the tube of toothpaste, or whether it's the brand that gives you 32% fewer cavities or 48 fewer cavities. But a toothpaste has a normal fixture at the top, where under pressure the paste will come out. So too the human mind, when it's under the pressure of guilt, has a normal outlet, namely admitting it and seeking pardon. That's like taking the cap off the toothpaste.
Oh my gosh.
But now suppose you deny
That's really deep.
this normal outlet.
It's better.
And you keep the cap on. And then you begin to use pressure on this tube. What happens? You don't know where in heaven's name the toothpaste is going to come out. So now with guilt submerged in the subconscious mind, and we get under pressures because of guilt, we don't know where it's going to come out.
And I'm just going to stop there because he also goes into I'm just going to go give you the short version for the sake of time. He also uses an example of guilt coming out. He talks about he draws an example actually from Macbeth. After Lady Macbeth kills the King Duncan, later in the play she is seen like washing her hands as if to try to wash her hands from the guilt, but she can't. And then also Lord Macbeth sees the knife before him. That whole scene of, what is this? A knife? Or was it a dagger? With the handle stretched before my hand? Come, let me touch thee. That whole bit.
Yeah. Sorry, you said how did it start that bit? It was like, what is this? What is it? There's flowers everywhere.
Time. There we go.
I get my Halloween reference in. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you did.
But needless to say, Bishop Sheen had a sincere gift for not just storytelling, but a brilliant orator, and did not like certain elites, correct, later in life. And he basically
he did have a bit of a feud with the then Cardinal Archbishop Spellman of New York, but that was more of a personal matter. But otherwise, he argued on a philosophical level, but to my knowledge, I don't think he really called anybody out to the mat like Trump would.
Yeah. Well, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that in order for him to progress, I think there's someone was talking once about him getting canonized as a saint or something like that. Or him,
that's different because that was that cause only opened in 2002, and this guy, God rest his soul, he died in 1979. Just 2 months after meeting John Paul II.
I wish we had him for longer. Jack Poso on Twitter's a big fan of him.
And for good
Jack
reason.
Posobiec.
Yeah, and there's actually one clip of him that really people really like to share. And let's see if you can make connections in your mind.
False compassion, which is gradually growing in this country, is a pity that is shown not to the mugged, but to the mugger. Not to the family of the murdered, but to the murderer. Not to the woman who was raped, but to the rapist. Not to the poor girl who's given a shot of dope, but to the rich boy who happens to come from a fine family. There are some judges, some in some of our courts. There are some social workers, not all. There are sob sisters. There are the social slobberers who insist on compassion being shown to the muggers, to the dope fiends, to the throat slashers, to the beatniks, to the prostitutes, to the homosexuals, to the punks. So that today the decent man is practically off the reservation. This is the false compassion.
That's really pertinent. How much time do we have left?
I'm not sure. I haven't gotten the 10-minute warning yet.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see he was a little bit ahead of his time.
Oh, quiet. Chesterton's has that level of timelessness a little bit as well. That's why I was so interested in him a while back.
And I guess, in a way, Chesterton, Bishop Sheen, and just off the top of my head, St. Paul VI, all of them I think were sort of cut from that same cloth of timelessness. Like you could see a lot of our modern world in their past writings or speeches. One sort of tangent that this calls to mind, like I mentioned Paul VI, because he's the one who wrote the encyclical called Humanae Vitae, which, everybody around, I mean, this was like early 60s, so everybody's like, okay, the world's changing. The church is finally going to allow contraception. They're finally going to allow this and that. The Pope Pope Paul VI came out and just said no. And I can't remember the predictions he had made. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I wasn't expecting to go down this tangent. But among the predictions, he said that if you go down this road, you'll see an increase in faithlessness, increase in divorce rate, broken families, and all the consequences thereof. That's starting to sound a little bit familiar.
He's saying, and what particular road he was saying, if you go down this road, like
If you-
moral rot?
If you allow contraception. Oh yeah, and another one is an exception, the acceptance of abortion.
Wow. It's an interesting thought, contraception, because this kind of just hit me like a lightning bolt. What contraception has effectively done to the culture, and I'm not advocating a stance here, but the thought, because I don't know enough about it to have an informed opinion, but the thought is when you have contraception that's so effective as it is now, you've completely detached sex, for example, with being a parent, having a family, and effectively doing what it was assigned for, is bringing a child into this world. You've completely detached those, so there's sex merely for pleasure and personal fulfillment and whatever you want. And if somehow the contraceptive doesn't work, then you can just purge the child.
Pretty much right on the head, and I'm not sure if there's much I can add to that.
Yeah.
I mean, we see the consequences of these things.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we're part of a generation now that is reluctant to even get married because they see what the parents went through.
Right. They're like, oh, my
because of
parents got
this
divorced or
this
whatever.
idea of separating the marital act from the bringing forth of the next generation, to accept the responsibility of say, you know what, I'm going to enter in a lifelong commitment, and I'm going to bring forth the next generation, both in body and in spirit, that we can continue.
Yeah. Do you notice that there's almost an attachment these days? Like, obviously, we're living in a time of complete meaninglessness because for the last, I don't know how many generations you'd say, but certainly the last two, we've been spoon fed a steady diet of nihilism, and nothing has any meaning anymore, of Marxist atheism. But do you think one of the reasons why people also struggle with meaninglessness is because they've been completely detached from any kind of personal responsibility or consequences for some of their actions?
That is certainly, yeah, I would say that's if nothing else, a very, very prominent contributing factor.
Because the point I'm making or mentioning, bringing that up, is because we're already on a tangent of, like, contraceptives, of course, and sex, and like what that does to a society, but also when you can be when people never become parents and start their own families, they continue to have this extended adolescence well into their 40s and their 50s. I mean, I meet yuppies all the time, for example, when I'm driving for Lyft, and they think it's funny, like, or they don't have any problems living in high crime areas, or pretending that crime doesn't exist in their cities, and going out to these upper class bars with their friends and never starting families, um, never amounting to anything, and them bouncing around for partners. I'm not saying that people always have to start families. I'm just saying that when people in mass don't want to start families at all, and they just want to continue to party endlessly until their 60s.
It's also not just shirking off um, this duty to bring up the family. It's, Michael Knowles talked about this. I think it was Michael Knowles, where it's, yeah, we have rights, but we also need to consider the corresponding duties.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody likes to hear the rights. Oh, I have a right to control this. I have a right to control this about myself. I have a right to control that about myself. I can actually change my pronouns to zippity and doodah.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody thinks, okay, I actually have a duty to society.
Mm-hmm.
Society has a duty to protect my rights. I have the duty to advance my society.
Or certainly at least my family, or the cause of Christ,
okay,
for example.
Yeah. Family, from that comes society.
Correct.
People got wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people assume that we're just all individuals just sort of floating around and this makes society. No. I mean, that's kind of like just throwing a bunch of protons, neutrons, electrons, all of them loose, just throw them in a box, see what happens. Most likely, I'm by no means a theoretical physicist, but I'm pretty sure that leads to one big kaboom. But my point being, the individual is not the basis of society, the family is. And
Correct.
And all of us have a duty based around that.
Mm-hmm. If you bring back the family and then you basically make it so that, hypothetically, if you go back to the family has a one income source, where it's the man providing, that frees up the woman to be able to be home with the kids and be able to provide for the kids, be able to provide dinner, do traditional roles. You have the traditional nuclear family model, which has been criticized since the 50s and 60s by Marxists. But you have that, you're going to start solving a lot in a couple generations. You're going to start solving a lot of societal problems. Mental illness is going to go sharply down. You're going to see a lot less lawlessness. You're going to see a lot less crime. Unfortunately, anybody who's well informed or even moderately informed is aware that with what we're seeing in our society, all of it's been by design, the deliberate demolition of American society. However, I am optimistic that if we basically repent behavior, change your mind and then change your behavior. The point is that if people sincerely not just return to Christ, but sincerely say, okay, look, I've done it this way and this isn't working. I need a course correction. I think if we did that as a, like, not only just as a mass society, I think we'd see that, like, I think a lot of liberties will start returning back to our nation. I really sincerely think that.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And of course, we actually ran out of time a little bit sooner than I thought, so we're gonna have to continue this in a part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
Do you have time to wrap?
Yeah, we have time to wrap. So basically, just don't have time to like, comment,